If the planets aligned and I could somehow get anyone in the whole world that I wanted to narrate my first short film, it would be the silly walkin', faulty towered, fishy wanded, fart in my general direction John Cleese. Say what? Episode 13? Breaking into the film industry. Also titled The John Cleese Saga, Part 1. Months passed after Bill Murray declared his undying love for me on a windy night in Salt Lake City. Every week that went by, I tried less and less to track him down, until really I puttered out entirely and I hung up my Boba Fett mask to dry. That is, until I'd get a new idea on how I could reach Bill, and I'd try it, and then I'd give up again, and so on. This pattern continued for longer than I'd care to admit, like years and years. You don't get people to say you're a determined idiot for nothing. There is luckily a meaningful result to all of the years of trying to make the Getting Bill Murray film. But for today, we have a brand new chapter in my life that needs to be analyzed and mocked in earnest. And this thing is going to be a 5-parter. Here we go! In 2012, my homie Clark and I decided it couldn't hurt for us to try and get our foot into the film industry with some different projects. Then, maybe someday we would still get to go back and make the film Getting Bill Murray. Clark and I aren't complete novices in the film industry. Clark even owns his own video production business, but it mostly focuses on live streaming concerts and conferences. I've helped him run gigs a bunch of times, and we both have experiences with shooting and producing marketing, music, and comedy videos. Yet, we've both dreamt of moving into the world of feature film production. We both had that dream, but where to start? I really wanted first-hand advice, so we started holding interviews with several Utah film people, trying to learn as much as we could. We take an individual out to lunch, ask questions, look stupid, and repeat the process as necessary. The guy who started me on a path that eventually led to a bigger destination and the most epic letdown of my life is a gentleman named Abel. He was one of the guys behind the film Saints and Soldiers, if you've ever seen that one. Compared to a lot of stuff that gets made in Utah by local filmmakers, especially at that time, it was a standout film. So we sat down at a lunch, and I skipped the previously mentioned ask question stage and just went straight into looking like a hose face while eating my Asian pulled pork sandwich. My buddy Clark, however, remembered the formula and he got the discussion going. Our first question was, how was he able to get the funding to make Saints and Soldiers since it was their first project? And while it didn't have a huge budget, $1 million is still a chunk of change for brand new filmmakers to raise. Adam explained they had an extremely wealthy friend that put up the cash for the film. Since the film did well, Adam mentioned they've been able to self-fund many of their other projects since. Here I am again, sitting in the presence of yet another person I resent a little. I'm not a crazy negative person, but hey, this is a self-therapy session. I have to be honest. And that is definitely who I was then, jealous of people that had the creative life that I so desperately wanted. And it's not always easy to hang out with people that have something you wish you had. Adam was spending his life as a creative person and doing pretty well for himself. Yes, resent this little man I did. Dang Yoda, I can't say stuff like that without sounding like him. Okay, so what do you do if you don't have a friend willing to fork over $1 million bones on a movie idea? I asked something like that. Adam explained the only way he knew to get a jump start would be to write an awesome short film, make sure it's super well written and produced, and then start submitting it to festivals and networking. I swallowed my last bite of sandwich, and I started drifting off into writer land. I formulated right then the idea that I'd go home and start writing. A short film based on a few funny moments from my life. Clark and I did take a few more people out to lunch, but we really didn't get much out of it. One guy in particular really had no intention of being helpful. He just wanted free salmon. A special thanks to that guy. All these years later, I have to admit I don't necessarily agree with Adam's advice anymore. I can't argue with film festivals and the value that they can provide to filmmakers. It's a specific part of his advice I don't really dig anymore. I also went out to lunch with another dude semi-recently. His name's Jake Van Wagner, and he really helped shift my thoughts. Jake is another one of these blokes living the creative life, and he's freaking hilarious. Really, you'd have to have a sense of humor having been a writer and a producer for Impractical Jokers, as Jake is. So we started talking about short films, and his opinion was, if you can, don't waste time with short films. Take all that effort, the money, and drive, and put it towards a feature. He made a lot of really valid points, but the basic idea is features have the ability to change people's lives way more often than a short. What really struck a chord for me was all these years I've wanted to make a feature, but I was stopping myself thinking that I had to do a certain number of other things first, like getting a short into a festival. Well, that's a hogwash cut of bologna crap steak. Why not just figure out a way to do what you know you want to do and just go do it? Don't get me wrong here, there are some fantastic short films, and I'm glad that people make them. But honestly, that's not where I go when I'm consuming film. I'd probably rather spend 3 hours being Christopher Nolan. He's a verb now, if you didn't know. Get yourself Nolaned up right now if you can. So shorts and film festivals are one way to break into the film industry, sure. I knew that before meeting Adam. Or obviously you could go straight into creating features and getting those out via festivals and other mediums. And there's 1,000 other ways in between, like the story of how Rocky was made, which is insanely inspiring. I remember once I asked this dude who maintained a list of Hollywood contacts what he recommended to break into the film industry. And he was a fairly calloused fellow by then. His response to me was, move to LA and start driving limos and hope you pick up a celebrity. Don't do that. I guess if you really want to, go for it. If you do, let me know how it goes. But I don't have the money to make a feature film. Whether making a movie is a goal in your life or not, we can all get really good at making excuses for ourselves. Most of us have things we wish we could accomplish, but we block ourselves. Whenever we fail or we don't pursue what we really want, we blame it on external malarkey like time and energy and money or lack of tech, lack of education, no support, or the crappy economy, just to name a few. Tony Robbins, Good old Tony Robbins has this killer quote that's been resonating with me lately. He says, resources are never the problem. A lack of resourcefulness is the problem. As I'm working to rewire my brain with this I will thrive mentality, this quote has really been churning in my noggin heavily. So you don't have the money to make a movie, then freaking find a way to get some. And don't stop until you have it. Or be resourceful and figure out how to do it without money. Let's not limit ourselves with our lame excuses anymore. Let's get busy. And I mean that in every way possible. I just winked if you're listening to the podcast. With all this in mind, I would say the best method of breaking into the film industry would be to be resourceful, resilient, and relentless. R, yeah! 3-word alliterations are my thing. And now we have 3 3-word alliterations. Personal Power Pact, PPP, Maxim, Motto, and Mantra, MMM. Put all 3 of those together and you get PERM. 9 letters of awesomeness that also make your hair cute and curly. A couple weeks after The Pulled Pork and Adam's Aid, that's a weak band name, but there's been far worse. Have you ever heard of Gay for Johnny Depp? It's a real band. I'm not judging sexual orientation here at all. I'm just saying, wow, that's a terrible band name. It's funny, but it's terrible. I had written my short screenplay titled Don't Call Me Walter. I followed suit just as I did with the Getting Bill Murray script, and I tried to get several people to read it. This little short story of mine took an interesting turn while I talked it over with Clark. It was a collection of my funny moments from my life, but it also became the story of not giving up on your dreams because we're all going to be dead soon anyway. Most everyone that read it laughed and gave me positive feedback. I was excited. Though it seemed weird to try and find an actor to play myself, Clark convinced me I should just do it since most of it was narrated anyway, and I just have to act out the scenes with very few lines. At that time, I had very little acting experience, which I'll tell you about later because it's a pretty hilarious childhood fail that really should be recognized. Clark was right about one thing for sure. Don't Call Me Walter is a narrated story, and we needed a great voice to pull it off. There goes my twinkle twinky eyes again. I started making a list of my favorite people in comedy, especially those that had amazing voices. Can you guess who was in the number 1 spot? It had to be John Cleese. If the planets aligned and I could somehow get anyone in the whole world that I wanted to narrate my first short film, it would be the silly walking, faulty-towered, fishy-wanded, fart-in-my-general-direction John Cleese. If comedy were a religion, then my faith was built on the gospel of Monty Python and the 80s movie Strange Brew. Growing up, I watched this stuff more than anything else. Comedy was really a great release for me with my somewhat rough childhood. If I could ever work with John Cleese or any of the Python gang or Dave Thomas or Rick Moranis, it would be like working with my own personal gods of comedy. And they really are the gods of comedy for a lot of people. This is crazy evident in the Python's reunion show of 2014. They sold out the first show, which is a 20,000-seat arena, in 43.5 seconds. Whoa. Okay, that wraps up part 1 of the John Cleese Saga on breaking into the film industry. We'll catch you on the next time. Thanks for watching, listening, subscribing, being yourself. Check out Patreon. I will thrive. Thanks.